Good morning. Welcome to the first Wake Up Newport of the new year. I'm Steve Rosansky, President and CEO of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce. We got a great program here for you this morning. Unfortunately, Alberto Sandoval, who normally does the opening remarks, couldn't make it today, so you got me for both positions. I have to do both positions. I hope they're going to pay me twice as much this week. So, for those of you who are new to Wake Up Newport, it's great to see such a big crowd here early in the morning. We do this once a month, typically the first Thursday of the month. We pushed it a week this month because not too many people like to show up to events on January 2nd after having a good time the night before. But glad to see you here. I hope you got something to eat and something to drink. I'm just going to make a couple quick introductions of some of the dignitaries that have joined us this morning, and then we'll get to our program. So with us this morning is Councilwoman Robin Grant, back here somewhere. We also have the Orange County. Did you all pay your property tax bills? That's what I want to ask you. I hope so. If not, we have the Orange County Treasurer, Sherry Friedenrich, here with us this morning, back there. We also have our City Manager, Grace Leung, somewhere. Or maybe she wheeled out. Oh, she's back there, yeah, okay. She's in the handicap section, yeah. We have with us our Public Works Director, Dave Webb. Dave, yeah? I keep trying to get Dave to make 3 lanes on Coast Highway at the bridge. I'm working. I'm not your councilman anymore, but I'm still working for you. Okay. Public with the Planning Commission, John Langford this morning. With the Civil Service Board, Howard Herzog. Dorothy Larson, the Library Board of Trustees, is with us. And we also have Diane, Harbor Commissioner. And I hope I got everybody. If you're a dignitary, who did I miss? I don't know that I know her name. Oh, Diane. Sorry. Thank you for coming, Diane DeRudy. Parks, Beaches, and Recreation. You know, I was a Parks Commissioner for about 3 months, and then I wasn't. Okay, so with that being said, let me get out the bio here. We can read it, and mercifully, Kristen, who works for Diane, sent me a very short one, so we can go with that. If I can get it open here on my phone. And I don't know why it's not. Oh, no, I don't want the Wells Fargo bank statement. Sorry about that. Yeah, really. There's not much in there, so delete draft. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, Assembly member Diane Dixon joins Wake Up Newport to talk about her second term and what can actually be accomplished in Sacramento. She'll talk about the continued focus on public safety, affordability, supporting business, and to grow the economy and coastal preservation efforts with a commitment to upholding local control. And the Assembly member looks forward to partnering with residents to raise voices for change in Sacramento. And that was what she's talking about. This is her actual bio. Diane is one of the few members of the California State Legislature with real-world business experience. She spent 40 years in the private sector at a Fortune 300 company, before being elected. Actually, she ran unopposed her first term, being elected to the Newport Beach City Council in 2014, where she served 2 terms as our mayor. Assembly member first elected in 2022, and she just finished her first term, and her goal is to create real solutions to California's problems. She continues to work to improve public safety, reduce the cost of living increases, and protect. Can you bring the prices down? Okay. I know the president's promised to do, or our next president's promised to do that. I hope the legislature will do that too. Reduce cost of living increases and protect our beautiful coastline, all while creating greater cooperation between residents, businesses, and government to resolve community problems. Her assembly committees in 2024 include Vice Chair of the Judiciary Appropriations, Banking and Finance, Business and Professions, Government Organization, and Privacy and Consumer Protection and Rules. Wow, you're going to be busy. She's delighted to be here today, so I'll give you Diane Dixon.
Yes, I'm delighted to be here. It's wonderful to see all of you. So many old friends, good friends. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Steve. And thank you for the Newport Chamber. This is special for me to be here on a Thursday morning because I am playing hooky from the state legislature. I'm missing the Thursday morning 9 a.m. session. This was the first week of being back. I was there on Monday. And I came back. Last night was newly elected Supervisor Janet Wynn's swearing in, so I had a state reason from the state, a state official reason to be down here. And then Steve asked when I was ever going to speak to Wake Up Newport, but I'm never here on a Thursday morning. I'm always in Sacramento. So Janet Wynn said last night in her remarks she appreciated that I was there because I had to turn around and get on the 7 a.m. flight. So don't tell anybody I'm not on the 7 a.m. flight to Sacramento. But I did get an excused absence because this is important community event, and it's official state business when I'm updating my constituents and my district residents and anybody else who's here on what's going on in Sacramento, which is always my favorite topic because I hope you have a couple hours. There's always something to talk about. But I am honored to represent you. I'm thrilled to be reelected. This life that I lead in Sacramento, I was happy. I say to many people a lot that serving the people of Newport Beach on the city council and as mayor twice is the best job in the world. I could do it forever. But when I realized, actually, the last time I was mayor was in 2019, it began to be apparent to me as mayor and council member that all these new mandates were coming from Sacramento. And isn't anybody going to go to Sacramento and represent our business interests, our coastal interests, our community, local government interests? And it's not like Sacramento is a highly desirable destination for a lot of people, but I said, I'll go. And I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I am reelected. I am one of now 20 minority party representatives. This is not a political discussion, but that's the reality of the demographics in the state legislature. And when you are one of 20 in a super minority, when there are 60 members of the other party, you really have to set your sights on what you can accomplish working across the aisle. And because you can't get anything signed into law without more votes than 20. You need 41 votes to pass a bill, and that goes on to the Senate. So from 20 to 41, you need to work with other people. So I was very pleased. The fact that I have now, Kristen, how many bills do I have into law? I think over 16? 16. And I mentioned Kristen. Kristen is my super duper district director. Couldn't do what I do. She keeps me everywhere in my district. So I'm honored that I've been able to have 16 bills signed by the governor, and that is a result of having good relationships on both sides of the aisles. You can't just be your own, march to your own drummer. You really, if you want to accomplish something, as well as participate in conversations. But that's not saying that I agree with everything that's going on the other side of the aisle. And so really, since my party does not have enough votes to stop some of the crazy things, and there are many crazy things that come out of Sacramento or go through that process, we have to use other means. And this is when I talk to constituents how important your voice is. Your voice is important. And when people wonder, does it count? Does my vote count? Your vote counts, of course, but your voice counts too. So I'll get into that and how important hearing from constituents all over California. My colleagues and I talk about this to all of our constituents, that if you see it, don't like it, say something. And that's exactly what I intend to do and continue to do, because that is effective today in the social media type world that we have. Those voices do get listened to. So let me just give you some data here of what's going on. As Steve mentioned, because there's so few Republicans, we all serve on many committees, but I'm pleased that I'm Vice Chair of Judiciary, and which a lot of bills related to business formation, all kinds of business, whether you're a homeowner or developer, bank, finance, financial interests, a lot goes through judiciary. Also, I'm vice chair of privacy and consumer protection. And that committee was formed maybe 5 or 6 years ago, obviously before I got there, really to deal with data that's collected on all of us and how business is using data. And it's evolved to AI and understanding how AI is emerging and has already emerged to be collecting a lot of data on a lot of people. And so what is the role of the state of California in AI? Congress is looking at it. So these are issues that I'm going to be getting into as vice chair. I'm also pleased that I continue to be a member among my other committees, appropriations, because every bill that has a fiscal impact goes through the appropriations committee, and that's virtually every bill. And it's really kind of a interesting game, if I should say. I don't mean to be too cynical, but a lot of bills get introduced that would promise the world on a lot of the state, everybody on getting free this, free that, free this, free that. Some of these bills are seriously important, and I will vote no, but a lot of them is just, they're called message bills, and people introduce them to say, well, I'm fighting for you, and they never get through appropriations because they cost too much money. I quote often Governor Brown, who said in vetoing an important bill that had a lot of fiscal impact, he said, and I quote this all the time because I believe it's a very apt statement, not every problem deserves a law. Not every human problem deserves a law to solve that problem. He said that when typically the number of bills that came to his desk was about 2,000. Now it's far more than that. There are 4,000 bills introduced in each year of the last 2-year session. So in 2023, there were about 2,000 bills, 2024, another 2,000 bills. And now this year, there's a new rule. We'll see if everybody adheres to it. Each individual legislator can introduce only 35 bills total for a 2-year session. So we'll see. There's some legislators, primarily on the other side of the aisle, who introduce like over 50 bills. So I'm on appropriations, and when we vote on these bills, I get stacks of binders. Every bill, thousands of bills. I read them. So when they come to the committee and they come to the floor, I can say something about them, or at least I know what I'm voting on. A lot of people, there are too many bills for people to know what they're voting on. That's a real problem. Too many bills. So this is a good change going forward for the next 2 years, a total of 35. Let's see how the Rules Committee holds back on these bills. Now, a consequence will be kind of the majority party. Often you introduce a bill and then it never gets referred to a committee. That's kind of a little trick that goes on. So now the excuse is there are fewer bills that should be distributed to the appropriate committees so that people are aware. So there's too many bills, too many laws. In fact, Elon Musk said, it was quoted in the book, the biography that was published about a year ago on him, and I quote him. The reason why he was investing more in Texas and leaving California is because there are too many lawsuits, too many regulations, and too many taxes. So I kind of agree with all that. And no matter what party, in fact, even my Democrat friends will say the same thing. There are just too many. We can't read all these bills. It's like solving every human problem with a bill. And so I will say that in a committee hearing if it's before, and I say, why do we need this bill? And there are a lot of stories I could tell about that. But what I'm doing this year going forward, well, I will just say one bill that I got passed into law that I'm really pleased about because it relates to my interest in Newport Beach, as I'm interested in everything Newport Beach. But it's looking at both of you and the electric bikes on the boardwalk. Is that still a problem? Yes? Well, I try everywhere. Of course, you're right. Everywhere, and many of us are, both sides of the aisle are focused on electric bikes because of the safety issue, obviously. But for Newport Beach, we have a boardwalk, and people think it's a bike path. It's a boardwalk. And there's a safety issue, obviously, from a speed limit. So I was not able to change. There's a powerful bike lobby in the state of California. I wanted to reduce the maximum speed limit, because on the boardwalk, it's 8 miles per hour. I wanted to get to 15 if possible, because bike riders are going on an e-bike are going far faster than 15. So I couldn't mandate the change because it's, I guess, an enforcement issue. But what I did do, and it was signed into law, I'm very pleased, that as of January 1st, people cannot modify their devices. I did not know this. When I got into this, I know this. Devices to change the speed regulator, governor, they call it, on an e-bike. And so if someone buys this device and installs it on their bike, they're violating the law. It's illegal. It's illegal in the state of California. And a lot of people just got it on Amazon. So we'll see if it's effective that this is now prohibited for sale in the state of California. And that limits the speed of the bike. I don't know if it gets down to 15, it may be 20, but that's better than 25 or 30. But anyway, that's what I did. Hopefully that will help your boardwalk safety issues. One thing that affects Newport Beach for many years, and I see, where's Laura Curran? I see you here, back there. Sober living homes. So I've learned a lot in 2 years. I initiated a audit, an objective state legislative audit that was approved by bipartisan, bicameral group to just look at the situation of rehab homes, sober living homes, medical homes for rehab, and social rehab. I had no idea how complex. I knew it was complicated because we were dealing with this when I was on the city council. But what the audit was approved, it took about 18 months. And the findings came back just this past October. And now I'm going to be introducing, and some of my other colleagues in Orange County who have the same issue in their communities, introducing some bills. But one way to get, I had a bill in the last session, and it didn't really go anywhere in I guess it was the health committee, because the perception is that cities like Newport Beach, we're elitist, and we don't want people to come into our neighborhoods to get well. That's not the issue. We want people to get well, but we found in this audit, number one, there is no data related to how, even HIPAA data, so it's privacy, but there's just no quantitative data. Are people getting well in these homes, rehabilitation homes? And there are three types. There are those that provide no medical services. They're just purely programs, rehabilitative programs, and that's administered by the Department of Health Care Services, just a bunch of bureaucrats or agencies. Then there's those services that provide mental and medical related services. That's administered by and regulated by the Department of Social Services. Then there's this group over here, recovery homes, sober living homes. I had no idea that there is no regulation, no licensing requirement whatsoever on sober living homes. I did not know this until this audit came back. So my audit related to the Department of Health Care Services, so it's just one section of it. But it was very important because these homes in our neighborhoods do not provide medical treatment. They're just beds. Now the state licensed them because there's 6 beds and fewer. And that was part of the original law that has never been amended 40 years ago, to keep small family-like environments so people can come in and experience a family-type rehabilitation experience. There's no medical services provided, no medical doctors provided. It's just group living. And this is what's impacted many of our communities, especially around Orange County. So I find that they're licensed, and what the operators of these homes, and everybody still calls them sober living homes, so I have to protect my words, because these are not sober living homes. They're licensed rehabilitation homes that do not provide any rehabilitation. And so bottom line, there's one aspect that I think, keep my fingers crossed here, that we could go after this, and there's no elitist accusation that when the original law 40 years ago was passed, when you might remember, you've heard about this, that all the mental hospitals, mental institutions were closed, and people, sadly, were just kind of pushed into their communities and left to the local governments, and this has contributed to the homeless situation. I mean, that's really what's happened, because there's no mental institution caring for these people. So in these homes that have sprouted up in our communities, where operators have bought up single-family residences and put 6 beds or under in there, and they have multiple homes in a neighborhood. Well, what has happened, according to the audit, is that these multiple homes in a single block have reinstitutionalized people who need help. So it was to deinstitutionalize people in need of help, rehabilitation, drug and alcohol rehabilitation. But because these homes are co-aggregated together, owned by the same operator, transported as a group to wherever they're getting their services, which are non-medical services, it's a big mess. So I hope the word is the deinstitutionalizing. We do not want to reinstitutionalize people. We want them to get well. That's the nature of my bill. AB 3, I introduced it on the first day of the session in December to require that homes are not owned by the same operator and that they are distanced from one another, because we have maps that show, the audit produced maps that show these homes are right on top of each other. They're on property that have multiple complexes, and they've been reinstitutionalized, and that was not the intent of the original law. So it's a fine point, a technical point, but it may be the to break this up. Then I'm going to be introducing another bill to audit the Department of Social. The first one was the Department of Healthcare Services. That was that audit. The next one, Department of Social Services. That's the medical part of all this. I'm going to be proposing another audit, but this would be an audit specifically to get to the medical improvement. How are people getting well? That's the bottom line. We want people to get well if they have these drug and alcohol problems. And then I'll get to the sober living homes. So just so you know, if you ever have any family members or you know they exist on your block, there's no regulation. Nothing anybody can do about it until we create a case through these audits, which have been important to establish a foundation of facts and data. And the bottom line is there's no data on people getting well. And the sober living homes don't let anybody go to a sober living home and as a family member thinking, and these are people like kids, young people, adolescents who come from Ohio. There's one up here in Santa Ana Heights that all these kids get dropped off at this facility. And I said, where are all these kids coming from? Ohio. So we all know people think they could get sober by coming to Newport Beach, but it's not helping these kids. There's no medical treatment, no drug-related antidotes to their sickness. So don't let anybody go to a sober living home. So we have to work with the insurance companies, and I have another bill this year to make sure the insurance for any license that's granted to a Department of Healthcare Services facility, that the operator declares that there's no medical service provided, so the insurance companies are informed that there's no medical service provided, because the insurance companies won't insure. They will insure only if there's medical service provided, but no one has ever required the declaration or the affirmation that no medical services are being provided in these facilities. So that's another bill. So I'm coming at it. It's taken a long time to kind of get my arms around this, but we're going to move forward. So if you need to know any more about what we're doing, Kristen, wherever Kristen is, she can certainly help you and call anytime. But this is what we're working on this year. So I'll do another audit. I talked about AB 3, human trafficking. So this is it should be a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue, but it's very difficult to get. You would think it wouldn't be, get human trafficking related bills through the Public Safety Committee of the Assembly and the Senate. The composition, the membership, the leadership has changed this session, so I have a slightly better level of confidence that we can make some common sense. I introduced a bill the last 2 years that never moved out of committee to help, and I didn't know this problem existed. In the state of California provides some type of housing for victims of human trafficking. I did not know that. But many of these victims, and that's under the state welfare code that provide for the victims, like they're teenage girls. Many of these, sadly, very sad story, many of these teenage girls who've been trafficked have babies. But those babies are not covered under any state provision, any state welfare provision, health care provision. So it's all by fundraising and private funds to help babies get the mothers get diapers and formula for their children. Plus, the counseling and everything you can imagine, the counseling and all the other services. And the state does provide, I can't say that they don't, but they haven't changed their amount of their cost or their budget allocation since 2012. It's been a long time. So money, and I've tried to get more money into help these girls, and there are several facilities in Orange County that are helping these trafficked girls. So that's just one aspect of human trafficking, which is a very important topic. I see our police and fire here. I mean, it is kind of an insidious fact of life in Orange County because we are a hospitality-centered area. And with the sheriff, no one from the sheriff's department is here, but when he talks about the human trafficking that goes on in Orange County, particularly in Anaheim, and it could be here, we really have to protect young people and be on the lookout. So anyway, I'm getting more involved in this because I have learned over the last 2 years that this is a message that resonates with a lot of people. We want to get to, and this is another sad element, we could get to the traffickers maybe, but the people who are being criminalized are the victims. And so Shannon Grove, a state senator, last year had a bill that actually, with a lot of push, it took her 4 years to get this bill passed, that the victim of human trafficking is not the criminal. Now we're looking at legislation, so that's changed, but we're looking at legislation to go after the person that procures the services from the trafficked girl. This stuff goes on. There are no laws about this. Shannon Grove has started this. Shannon represents the Bakersfield area. She's in her last term. And I'm really ramping up my interest in this as a focus because it's so important to our community. Okay, on more enlightened subjects, I really want to talk about business. I'm sorry to tell you this, that I could, out of 120 members of the State Assembly and State Senate, maybe 5, that's anecdotal, it's not scientific, 5, maybe, have ever worked in private industry. So what does that tell you? Nobody knows business. I once asked, this is a kind of an old story. I was in early days when I was talking with one of my, and the Democrats are nice people. You know, I go to drinks with them or have coffee with them, but we have different points of view, but you can still talk with them. Progressive Democrats especially. But anyway, I said, asked a friend, what is too much profit? What do you think is too much profit? Simple question, right? 0. Anything, they don't understand the concept of profit and loss. That's shocking. It's true. They think that anything you make should be taxed or given away. And I said, well, how do you the obvious questions. How do you grow a business? You have to reinvest. When you grow, you hire more people, jobs are created. So I have created this whole circle of life in the state of California that identifies last year, the budget year, was a $73 billion deficit. And you all read the same things I do, and I get more data too that shows that, well, funny thing, when you overtax and overregulate small business or big business, eventually they say, we're not going to play in this sandbox. We're going to Arizona. We're going to Texas. California is still an important market to do business in, but we can headquarter in Arizona. We can manufacture in Arizona or Texas or Florida. And the IRS, I quote this often because the IRS annually publishes a map of showing where people who pay federal income taxes, where they, by zip code or social security number, I guess it's by zip code, where they are now living, specifically about where they moved to, because a lot of movement is going on across the country, people chasing lower tax rates. Well, imagine in your mind's eye a red arrow from the state of California. Federal income taxes are, the people who paid in California are now in Arizona, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and Nevada, and Montana. This is where federal income tax is now being paid from. Well, the corollary is these people they used to pay state taxes, corporation taxes, payroll taxes, income taxes. Those taxes don't exist in some of these other states. They don't pay state income tax in Texas or Arizona, for example. But these people who used to pay state income taxes are now in other states and running other businesses. So Anybody wonder why we have a deficit? And the IRS computed that there was a loss in the federal income tax to the state of California over $50 billion, and we were reporting a $73 billion deficit. Now, the governor has a new budget. He's just in the process of announcing. He says the budget has only a $2 billion deficit. Well, we all know going forward, because of these devastating losses, and in fact, I should have said this at the beginning, we just honor our first responders, and we do. Don't we have Newport Beach Fire up in Los Angeles? Don't we have them up in, didn't we send two engines are up in Los Angeles County. I mean, thank you. This is just devastating. We all know people in LA County. Our first home was in Pacific Palisades. And I had 1978. It's no longer. I was in those alphabet streets when I just heard that last night. So sad for everybody. Anyway, I'm sure going forward in Sacramento, a lot of changes. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes to a lot of things that shouldn't be. I mean, I just have a different philosophy about some of this stuff. But helping people get back in to restore their lives to some semblance of normalcy is going to be a priority, and they've got to find the money. They have to find the money somewhere. The governor's budget is $313 billion. Somewhere we could find money to help people and help our communities. I heard someone on the news this morning about in Pacific Palisades saying if we could start today and rebuild our home, because of all the permits from the state of California, from the city of Los Angeles, it will take at least 2 to 5 years to get all the permits. So that alone is something to look at, and the legislature will do that, I'm sure, without any controversy, is waive those permit requirements, and that will go far. So that hasn't started yet. All this is going to be coming before us to realize how we can help the people and help these communities. And I mean, businesses, schools, public facilities have been destroyed. So this legislature must step in and be the fixer and get water in the fire hydrants and that type of thing. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to have bipartisan, bicameral support for restoring the hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars that needs to be fixed to restore lives. So sad. But anyway, before the fires, Governor Newsom had all these other programs. He wants to fight the administration on immigration. My party typically doesn't agree on those kinds of things in terms of supporting illegal immigration and criminals who have been convicted. And that's a problem. When I went down to the border last spring and learned about ICE and local government and how they cannot even look at each other because of the state of California has their sanctuary city laws, it was shocking to me. So I think we have to make sure we keep our community safe. So I will be doing whatever I can. One of my colleagues has introduced a bill to prevent or to allow the deportation of someone who has been convicted of a crime, a serious crime, a felony, to be deported. That hasn't come up for a debate. He's just introduced this bill last week. We'll see what happens. So that's, we're wrestling with all these issues, and the most important thing to me is to help people who've just had their lives destroyed by the fires. People, I don't see Seymour Beek here, but just a quick update on the ferry. It's still pending. Fortunately, the chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee came down in July at my invitation and met with a lot of the local officials and our fire and city manager and Chamber of Commerce, and made an excellent, outstanding impression that we need the ferry for safety reasons. If there's ever a fire, earthquake, tsunami, the ferry does provide access off for Balboa Island and for peninsula residents to be moved off the peninsula or Balboa Island. So that issue of safety and emergency is maybe what we'll be able to advance. The issue simply is, in the state of California, you all know this, you hear it everywhere, zero emissions means zero emissions, not 0.01% emissions, zero. Balboa Ferry, unless they get to zero emissions, they are out of compliance with the state California Air Resources Board. So this is what I'm working on, to create common sense conversations about how the impact of these kinds of regulations, just like Elon Musk said, too many regulations. This is what's happening to businesses. And the ferry is the poster child. When I talked with Seymour when I first was elected, and he told me what he has to change his engines, his 3 engines, which are in compliance with the air quality standards, have to convert from diesel to zero emission. The engines don't exist. Somebody has to invent them. And he's just a little ferry company, so he's in a category all by himself under CARB. Anyway, they're crazy laws. I'm there to bring some common sense, and that's what I hope you take away from all of this, that if you have a common sense challenge and problem, I tried to do this in Newport Beach, let's just fix these problems and find solutions, because that's my framework is let's solve this problem. So I probably overstayed. Steve, should I open it up for questions? All right. Oh, I want to say thank you to all of you who voted yes on Prop 36. Public safety it's a new chapter in state of California, and about a whole package of retail theft bills is in effect now. So I think we're going to have some important new conversations about what we're doing with crime in the state of California. So, questions? Yes. Hi. You're absolutely right. There are so many crazy laws. So one bad law that has been slightly fixed, how many of business owners are familiar with the Public Attorney General Act, PAGA? You have a horrific experience, I'm sure.
The improvement is like incredible.
Can you feel it?
Yes, thank you.
So PAGA was that anybody, any employee, anybody can sue anybody. And the cost of that lawsuit was putting a restaurant owner, a small business owner, whatever your company, if that person, that employee or person who did not experience it directly, and they're lawyers, sadly, who form class action lawsuits, and every little business that does this one little thing, they get sued. Millions of dollars. I've heard this from the restaurant owners in Newport Beach, in my district. It's terrible. Just to illustrate how terrible it is. It's still bad in this one area. If your website is not fully legible by a blind person, it's serious. That blind person, and there's lawyers that represent them, as an ADA violation. And then the business owner has no recourse but they get sued by these class action lawyers. They get sued, and the business owner has no recourse but to settle for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And not this business, nonprofit organizations have the same problem. So the PAGA reform was an important reform where it requires, there's still PAGA where anybody can sue, but you have to be, the person bringing the suit has to have been personally affected. It can't just be, I have my full vision, but I know somebody who can't read, or they're blind. It has to be somebody personally impacted, and then resolution within a certain time limit for the resolution of these issues. But it's still a bad law. But it was important because the business community was putting a measure on it would have been on the November 22 ballot, but they were able to change. California's Chamber of Commerce and other chambers of commerce were all united to work with the plaintiff's attorney because they knew they weren't going to win. So they agreed to make these modifications. We'll see, and let me know if there still is a problem, because there's always a rule to fix. But back to, people don't understand how business operates. So the regulatory agencies, this is another little dirty little secret of Sacramento. I just came to this conclusion because all these bills, I mentioned the Judiciary Committee, that if it's tenants' rights, how much time do I have? I said I had 2 hours. But anyway, tenants' rights. There were multiple bills in the last 2 years on tenants' rights and putting a landlord, just taking away the rights of landlord, reducing the security deposit, reducing this or charging that. And there was a bill that would create a new state agency for tenants' rights. And I asked my staff, how many bills, number one, have been introduced to increase tenants' rights over the last 4 years? There were like 15 bills, literally, new laws. And then I said, how many state agencies, or how many agencies, how many offices can someone go if they have a complaint or a tenant's issue? And they were like, there's the state of California already has in the Department of Justice. There is a California Apartment Association. There's the Orange County Apartment Association. Every county has an apartment association. Anyway, there's multiple resources. So there's an author who comes with a bill. He had two young men, they're college-age young men, saying that they couldn't find some information and so they want something to protect their tenants' rights. And so I said, these are college-age young men. I said, I just Googled tenants' rights, state of California, and there are at least five outlets for you to seek. Did you ever try Googling where you could get some information? And they go, no. And then they said, well, the cost of rent is too high. That came out in the discussion. And I said, I know, when I graduated from college, myself and three other friends lived together. That's how you reduce your costs. Do you do that anymore? Well, no, we shouldn't have to work together. I said, what's going on? Anyway, so that, like many of those bills, it passes. But I've learned that in those kinds of bills that I see in appropriations, and not just tenants' rights, there's a civil penalty, sometimes a criminal penalty, and it's assessed on a daily basis on the basis of this alleged violation. This is the dirty little secret. This is how agencies, CARB does this through their fines. Many of the other state agencies have put in law a violation and is a penalty charged every day. Now, like in the new housing laws, a housing element, it's a case in point. If the city is not in compliance with the state housing element, every day the city is charged, what is it, Grace, $200,000 a day or something like that? I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is what funds more regulation. And this is what pays the payroll of all these non-elected regulators. I had no idea. So I'm going after that one. So back to your, I have nothing to lose. I'm not trying to run for Congress. I'm not running for governor. I just want to have common sense. And people say she's crazy on going after this. People don't know where this money is going, and we're going to need a lot of money to help these people in these fire cities, and there's a lot of money that's wasted, and I'm going to try to address it. As far as the budget is concerned, to really call this out during the budget process. Yes, back in the back row. Yes.
Last September, Governor Newsom.
Do you want to give you a microphone? Yes, microphone.
Oh, thank you. Last September, is this on? Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 1825. Now, what does 1825 do? I believe 1825 says that all children's titles must be accessible to the public unless they are obscene by way of a definition from the U.S. Supreme Court. So that means that any otherwise inappropriate children's titles in a public library must be accessible to the public. Do you recall how you voted on that particular?
I think I voted no.
No. Do you have a view or any thoughts on
let
it?
me tell you, this is what I tell people. As we all heard in many districts, many school districts, our own school district, parents rightfully are upset, whether it's on the books in the library or now there's a state law that prohibits a teacher from talking to the parent about their child changing genders. And now the teachers, it's not a law, get involved in the personal issues of a family. And when people are very upset about this, they are going to school board meetings, they'll probably continue to, and get rally support. I think that's all important if that's what you believe, and I am supportive conceptually. But we're never going to change those policies. We're never going to change those policies. Kristen, stop me if I get too political. If the legislature is made up of the partisan makeup that it currently has. Until we have more balance in our state legislature where two sides can debate, discuss, amend, that doesn't go on with a super majority legislature. Until we have more balance, and you're seeing this in Congress. You have the Democrats and Republicans working together because the margins are so slim, but there's balance. You don't have that in Sacramento. There's no debate. In fact, Cal Matters, which is a newsletter or blog online, that objectively reports on state business. They reported last spring, they did an assessment of everybody's voting pattern. There is an assembly person in Torrance. He's a nice guy. I never knew this. So he's been in the office. I think he's still there. He's got one more term. He's been there 10 years. He has never voted no over 6,000 times. So this is what happens when you have a supermajority. If it were the opposite and the party that I'm affiliated with was the supermajority, I'd say this isn't good. There's no debate. There's no discussion. And any debate or amendments that happen outside of the public. So that's a fundamental problem. And I tell people, and my message to you is, use your voice, get involved, and write. All the letters that come in, and you can get this off the Assembly website. You get everybody's email address and telephone number and my local office. Your voice must be heard, because I'm sad to say that the school boards are following what is state policy or becoming state policy, and you can't fight or change state policy until we have the votes. And so there is hope. We've had 18, now we have 20 against 40, 20 against 60. We just need balance, and it used to be there are people in the legislature today who were elected in 2014, and it was about 36 to 44. I mean, that's a good balance. And so that's what I encourage people to get involved, to vote, and change policy, and give me the background, the support behind me to demand change. And you do that well. The libraries did that well. But there's still fight that needs to happen.
How about one last question?
Okay, one last question. Yes. Hi.
Hi, last time I went to one of your town halls, it was about the insurance for.
Yes.
And our insurance went up $500. But I guess I'm lucky because so many people lost their insurance.
Yes.
All these fires happened.
Yes.
How many of those people that were in that fire didn't have insurance?
Well, I heard that on the news. Somebody said that somebody didn't have fire insurance. Now, before those wildfires, there was, at effective January 1st of this year, it's a whole new ball game, because the insurance companies are now allowed to price their product prospectively based on their prior experience. They weren't able to have a prospective, what they anticipate and plan and strategically plan for the risk that is ahead. That's how all companies assess their future risk. Now it's the insurance commissioner has changed that requirement, so the insurance companies are coming back into California, who said that they didn't want to do any business. Now, with these current wildfires, it's a horrendous situation. I can't even comment on it yet. I do not know. But the people that lived in my district or live in my district that could not get fire insurance are better able. It's more expensive because it's probably more market-based pricing, that it hadn't been market-based price for about 10 or 15 years, so there's a lot of catch-up. But they are getting insurance.
So the law that was, I can't remember, it was something 13, I think, that had made it so that you had to be able to look at the insurance books to see if the pricing was really what they needed, instead of them just like, oh, okay, we're just.
But the problem with that was the proposition that the people voted on, like in 2005 or 2006. It created a position of an ombudsman. And the problem with that, sounds good, great to have somebody come in impartial. That position became a wedge to the insurance commissioner and challenged every single rate increase. So this is what drove the insurance companies out of California.
To open their books to justify.
Well, they did or they didn't, but the fact is they decided we're just leaving California. And so the cost of the lawsuits, because this is really what happened. This ombudsman person who actually authored the proposition 20 years ago, he's the one who got the money from the lawsuits. It just became a very corrupt situation. So the insurance companies are public companies, and so that information should be public, but it became a legal battle, and that's where the companies left. But hopefully the ombudsman is out of the picture now, and so the companies can function.
I just worry about price gouging, I think, corporations.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I honestly, I mean, you want them to be successful in the market. Is that it? One more question back there? Nope. Got to say no. All right. I want to thank you all. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Newport Beach, for having me back. I appreciate it. Feel free to write or call me. And how many of you are getting my weekly mailers? And thank Kristen for doing all that. So anything you think needs to be communicated, let Kristen know. But thank you. Happy New Year.
Well, on your way out, how about a big round of applause for Diane? Big round of applause. If you want to join us next week, we have our luncheon at Pistango on the 15th, and our Sunset Mixer is going to be at Helmsman Ale House, I think, on the 23rd. Have a great week and the rest of your month. Thanks.